The crowd fell silent as Lydia Owens clutched the rough wooden post behind her, her trembling fingers digging into the splintered surface. The harsh Wyoming wind whipped through the dusty streets of Sheridan, carrying whispers and judgment in every breath. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to let them fall again. She had cried enough. 3 days ago, she had been a wife. Today, she was being sold like property. "Next up, gentlemen," called Frank Chambers, the auctioneer, his voice echoing through the town square. "Mrs. Lydia Owens, sold to settle her husband's gambling debts. Bidding starts at $50. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lydia felt their eyes on her, weighing her worth as if she were nothing more than cattle. Her husband, Thomas, had vanished after losing everything at the card table to Jeremiah Quinn, at the ruthless owner of the Golden Nugget Saloon. Instead of facing his debts, he had signed away their home and even her freedom before fleeing town like a coward. "50!" shouted a rough voice from the back. Lydia recognized it instantly. Wilbur Simmons, the brothel owner. Her stomach twisted in horror. "60!" "75!" Simmons called again, more determined this time. Lydia closed her eyes, willing herself not to collapse. This could not be happening. Not in America. Not in 1878. Yet here she stood, helpless and alone, her fate resting in the hands of strangers. 100, came a new voice, calm and firm. Her eyes flew open. At the edge of the crowd stood a tall man leaning against a hitching post. His wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow over his face, but his presence was impossible to ignore. And he wore a worn leather vest over a faded blue shirt, and there was something steady and unyielding in the way he carried himself. 125, Simmons snapped. The stranger straightened, his piercing blue eyes fixed on the auctioneer. 300. A gasp swept through the square. $300 was a fortune. 300 going once, Frank called, clearly startled. Going twice? 350! Simmons shouted angrily. 500, the stranger said without hesitation. Silence fell. No one dared challenge him. Even Simmons fell quiet, his face flushed with rage. Sold, Frank declared, slamming his gavel down. $500 to the gentleman in the back. The crowd slowly dispersed, some muttering in disbelief, others shaking their heads. Lydia remained frozen, unable to move as the stranger approached her. His spurs jingled softly with each step, and when he stopped before her, she realized he was younger than she had first thought, perhaps in his early 30s. His expression was serious, but not unkind. "My name is Heath Vance," he said gently. "May I speak with you, Mrs. Owens? Somewhere more private." Lydia hesitated. This man had just bought her freedom. Yet there was no cruelty in his eyes, only quiet determination. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispered. He nodded once. "Then come with me." He signed the bill of sale quickly, his jaw tight with restrained anger. Moments later, they walked side by side toward the Sheridan Hotel, ignoring the curious stares that followed them. Heath did not touch her or offer his arm. Instead, he kept a respectful distance, and as though determined to give her dignity even in this humiliating moment. Inside the quiet dining room, he pulled out a chair for her. After ordering tea, he sat across from her, removing his hat to reveal thick brown hair and thoughtful eyes. "Mr. Vance," Lydia said softly, gathering her courage, "what do you expect from me?" His expression darkened. "Nothing. What happened today was an injustice. No human being should be bought or sold." He reached into his vest, removed the bill of sale, and tore it into pieces, letting them fall onto the table between them. "You're free, Mrs. Owens." She stared at him, unable to speak. My Freedom? I bought your contract so you could have your life back, he said quietly. You owe me nothing. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. But why would you do this for a stranger? Because it was the right thing to do, Heath replied simply. And because no woman deserves what was done to you. For the first time since the nightmare had begun, Lydia felt hope stirring within her. Heath studied her for a moment before speaking again. I have a ranch near the Montana border. I need a housekeeper. It's honest work, fair pay, and you'd have your own cabin. No expectations beyond that. You'd be safe there. She considered his offer carefully. She had no family, no money, and no future in Sheridan, where everyone had witnessed her humiliation. I accept, she said finally. Thank you, Mr. Vance. Call me Heath, he replied with a small smile. We leave tomorrow. The next morning, Lydia mounted a gentle chestnut mare named Penny as Heath prepared their supplies. Together, and they rode out of Sheridan, leaving behind the whispers and judgment that had nearly destroyed her. As the town faded into the distance, Lydia lifted her chin, determined never to look back. For the first time in days, she felt free. The journey north was quiet but peaceful. Rolling hills stretched endlessly before them, dotted with wildflowers swaying in the spring breeze. Heath set a steady pace, always mindful of her comfort, and Lydia found herself watching him when he wasn't looking. There was strength in him, but also kindness, and something deeper she could not yet name. 3 days later, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, they crested a hill overlooking a wide valley. Nestled among green pastures and winding streams stood a large log house surrounded by barns, stables, and grazing cattle. But Heath reined in his horse and gestured toward the breathtaking view below. Welcome to the North Star. Lydia caught her breath. It's beautiful. And as she gazed upon the ranch that would become her new home, she realized that what had begun as the darkest moment of her life might, somehow, be the beginning of something extraordinary. Life at the North Star Ranch began before sunrise. Lydia woke each morning to the soft glow of dawn spilling across the valley, the distant sound of cattle lowing, and the scent of fresh pine carried on the crisp mountain air. It was a peaceful life, far removed from the shame and fear she had left behind in Sheridan. With each passing day, she felt herself growing stronger, rediscovering the woman she had once been. Her duties were demanding but honest. Then she rose early to prepare breakfast for Heath and the ranch hands, her movements steady and confident in the spacious kitchen. Afterward, she cleaned the house, tended the laundry, and baked bread, while the aroma of fresh loaves filled the air. Martha Wilson, the foreman's wife, became both her guide and her friend, teaching her the rhythms of ranch life with patience and warmth. Heath, though often busy with his responsibilities, never failed to greet Lydia with quiet respect. At supper each evening, they sat across from one another in the warm glow of lamplight, sharing simple meals and gentle conversation. Lydia found herself looking forward to these moments more than she dared admit. Heath's calm voice, thoughtful manner, and steady kindness stirred something within her that she had long believed lost. Weeks passed, and spring blossomed into early summer. The ranch thrived under Heath's careful management, and Lydia quickly proved herself indispensable. She organized household accounts, managed supplies, and brought a sense of order and comfort to the North Star. Heath noticed her dedication, and one evening after supper, he invited her into his study. "I've been thinking," he said, his blue eyes earnest as he stood by the window. "You've done remarkable work here, Lydia, more than I ever expected. I'd like to offer you additional responsibilities, managing ranch records and correspondence. Of course, your salary will increase." Lydia's heart swelled with pride. "I would be honored, Heath. Thank you for trusting me." Their partnership deepened, built on mutual respect and quiet understanding. Yet beneath the surface, something more began to grow. And it revealed itself in fleeting glances across the dinner table, in shared laughter, and in the gentle way Heath spoke her name. Lydia tried to dismiss these feelings, reminding herself that he was her employer and benefactor. But each passing day made it harder to deny the truth. One warm Sunday afternoon, Lydia rode Penny along a winding trail that led to a serene lake nestled among tall aspens. The water shimmered beneath the sunlight, and wildflowers dotted the meadow like scattered jewels. She dismounted and sat upon a fallen log, savoring the stillness of the moment. The sound of approaching hoofbeats broke the silence. Heath emerged from the trees, his black stallion moving gracefully beneath him. He smiled when he saw her. "I didn't expect to find anyone here," he said. Dismounting. This is my favorite place on the ranch." "It's beautiful," Lydia replied softly. "Peaceful." They sat side by side, sharing a quiet meal and stories of their pasts. Heath spoke of his childhood, his mother's gentle strength, and the hardships that had shaped him into the man he had become. Lydia listened intently, her heart touched by his honesty. In turn, she shared memories of her life in Boston, of her parents' love, and the dreams she had once held before marrying Thomas. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, a silence settled between them, warm and unspoken. Heath reached out, his hand brushing hers. Lydia felt a spark of warmth rush through her, and she did not pull away. "Lydia," he said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. "From the moment I saw you in Sheridan, I felt something I couldn't explain. I've tried to ignore it, but I can't anymore. I care for you deeply." Her breath caught in her throat. "Heath, I care for you too." Slowly, giving her every chance to retreat, he lifted his hand to her cheek. "May I kiss you?" In answer, Lydia leaned closer. Their lips met in a tender kiss that blossomed into something deeper, filled with promise and longing. For Lydia, it felt as though the shadows of her past were finally fading, replaced by warmth and light. From that day forward, Heath courted her with quiet devotion. Wildflowers appeared on her doorstep. Books she loved were left on the table beside her chair. They rode together on Sundays and shared long conversations beneath starlit skies. Lydia's heart blossomed with hope, though a lingering doubt remained. She was still legally married to Thomas Owens, and until that bond was broken and their future remained uncertain. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Heath spoke gently. "I've been making inquiries," he said. "If Thomas never returns, you can seek a divorce on grounds of abandonment. It may take time, but there is hope." Lydia leaned her head against his shoulder, comforted by his unwavering support. "Thank you, Heath, for everything." He tightened his arm around her. "Whatever happens, we will face it together." Just as summer reached its peak, unexpected news arrived. A telegram from Denver revealed that Thomas Owens had been arrested for fraud and theft. Heath's lawyer believed the situation could finally bring Lydia the freedom she deserved. Determined to put the past behind her, Lydia agreed to travel with Heath to Denver and confront her former husband. As they prepared for the journey, Lydia stood on the porch of her cabin, gazing across the vast valley that had become her home. The North Star Ranch had given her dignity, purpose, and a love she had never thought possible. Now, at last, she stood on the threshold of true freedom. But the path ahead was uncertain, and the future would demand courage from them both. The journey to Denver was long and quiet, each mile carrying Lydia closer to a past she had hoped never to face again. The stagecoach rattled across the rugged trails, the vast western plains stretching endlessly beyond the windows. Heath sat beside her, his steady presence a source of comfort. Whenever doubt crept into her heart, his reassuring glance reminded her that she was no longer alone. Yet, by the time they reached the bustling city of Denver, Lydia felt both anxious and determined. The memories of Thomas still lingered, but they no longer held power over her. She had rebuilt her life, and now she was ready to reclaim her future. The following morning, Heath and his lawyer escorted her to the county jail. The cold stone walls and iron bars stood in stark contrast to the warmth and freedom she had found at the North Star Ranch. Lydia drew a steady breath as the guard led them into a small visitor's room. Moments later, Thomas Owens was brought in. He looked thinner, his once polished appearance replaced by prison clothes and unkempt hair. His sharp eyes widened when he saw Lydia, then shifted toward Heath with suspicion. "Well," Thomas said with a crooked smile, attempting his old charm, "if it isn't my dear wife, who come to visit me in my time of need?" Lydia met his gaze calmly. "I've come to speak about our future, Thomas." "Our future?" he scoffed. "You mean the fact that you're still my wife?" "No," Lydia replied firmly. "I mean our divorce." The words seemed to hang heavily in the air. Thomas leaned back in his chair, studying Heath with thinly veiled contempt. "And what do I gain from this arrangement?" Heath stepped forward, his voice steady and resolute. "Freedom. $500 in exchange for your signature. Enough to secure legal assistance and make your situation more bearable." Thomas's expression hardened, then softened as the reality of his circumstances settled in. He glanced at Lydia, and for a brief moment, shame flickered in his eyes. "You always deserved better than me," he admitted quietly. "I suppose this is the least I can do." Taking the pen offered by the lawyer, Thomas signed the divorce papers with a weary hand. As the ink dried, Lydia felt a profound sense of release. The weight she had carried for so long lifted from her heart. Outside the jail, the warm sunlight bathed the streets of Denver. Lydia stood beside Heath, the breeze stirring her hair as she exhaled slowly. "It's over," she whispered. "I'm truly free." Heath smiled gently, taking her hands in his. "You've always been free, Lydia. You just needed the chance to claim it." Emotion filled her eyes as she looked up at him. "You gave me that chance." He hesitated for a moment, then dropped to one knee right there on the busy sidewalk, heedless of the curious onlookers passing by. "Lydia Owens," he said softly, his voice filled with love. From the moment I saw you in Sheridan, I knew you were the woman I had been waiting for. Will you marry me and share your life with me at the North Star?" Tears of joy welled in Lydia's eyes. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with happiness. "Yes, Heath, I will." He rose and gathered her into his arms, sealing their promise with a tender kiss beneath the bright Colorado sky. In that moment, the shadows of the past vanished completely, replaced by a future filled with hope and love. A month later, beneath the golden hues of autumn, Heath and Lydia were married at the North Star Ranch. The ceremony took place in the open valley, framed by the towering peaks of the Bighorn Mountains. Ranch hands, neighbors, and friends gathered to celebrate, their laughter echoing across the fields. Lydia walked toward Heath in a gown of ivory lace, her honey blonde hair adorned with delicate wildflowers. When their eyes met, the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them, standing beneath the clear western sky. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. Heath lifted her veil and kissed her gently, a promise of a lifetime together. Cheers and applause filled the air as they turned to face their friends and family, hand in hand. Their life at the North Star flourished. Lydia transformed the ranch house into a warm and welcoming home, while Heath expanded the ranch with her support and wisdom. Together, they built a life founded on trust, respect, and unwavering love. In the spring of 1880, their joy multiplied with the birth of their first child, a son with his father's blue eyes and his mother's gentle spirit. 2 years later, a daughter followed, filling the ranch with laughter and light. The North Star became more than a home. It became a legacy of love and resilience. Years passed, and each anniversary, Heath and Lydia rode together to the quiet lake where their hearts had first truly spoken. There, beneath the whispering aspens, they remembered the day their lives had changed forever. One evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, Heath presented Lydia with a leather-bound journal. Inside, the first page bore his careful handwriting. In the spring of 1878, in a dusty town square in Sheridan, Wyoming, I found the woman who became my heart's companion, my greatest blessing, and the love of my life. Tears shimmered in Lydia's eyes as she closed the journal and embraced him. "You bought my freedom," she whispered softly, "but you gave me so much more. You gave me a home, and a family, and a love worth cherishing." Heath smiled, his gaze filled with tenderness. "And you gave me my heart, Lydia Vance, now and always." Hand in hand, they rode back toward the glowing lights of the North Star, where their children waited on the porch and the future stretched endlessly before them. Their story, born from sorrow and forged through courage, became a testament to the enduring